Welcome to Ask the FM Doctor, an interactive web series brought to you by the Simplard Foundation and IFMA to help you navigate the complex and ever-changing world of facility management. Whether you're a seasoned professional or a newcomer to the field, you'll find valuable insights and tips to deliver a better experience for your stakeholders while saving money. Join us on the third Tuesday of every month at 1 p.m. Eastern U.S. time to learn from our FM docs while connecting with other facility managers from around the world. Register today at simplerfoundation.org/FM-doctor so you don't miss an upcoming session.
So today's topic is global trends in facility management. This is a report that we published with IFMA a few months ago, and I wanted to go through and highlight some of the key takeaways from the report. We'll talk about what the report was, how it works, some of the upcoming future trends, which is kind of interesting. We'll have some data and other figures to help illustrate the points. Talk about hybrid work models, healthcare facility management. That'll certainly be a big part of what the future looks like. And again, we'll have a summary of what we're going to go through here today. If you do have questions or comments, I do have my eyes on the chat box, so definitely jump in here and I'll take a look at that, or just unmute yourself. We can go from there. And with that said, let's dive in. So kind of set the stage of where this has gone is that IFMA over the years, we have published a number of different reports about mostly on benchmarking. 2017 was the Operation and Maintenance Benchmark Report that was focused on North America. There's a follow report from there. 2020, we published a Space Planning Benchmark Report. If you're looking for a study of what things used to be like right before COVID happened from a space planning standpoint in terms of typical office sizes and things like that, this space planning report, we finished collecting the data. Honestly, folks, this is like 2 weeks before the entire world shut down. So if you're looking for a really good baseline of how things used to be, that space planning report is a fantastic resource. 2021, we published the Global Salary Compensation Report. This looks at pay and benefits and other insurance and different things that FMs get as part of working in their careers. This report will be updated next year as well. The Space Report, we've collected all the data for that for a new version of that, so that's on the way out as well. So be sure to stay tuned for that. And then starting in 22, we've expanded out to different geographic regions just besides North America. We've done an Asia report, Africa. This upcoming year, we'll be doing South America and a couple other regions as well. So there's lots of different things that are going on here. But really, the reason why we talk about this here is that there's a lot of global interest in facility management, and IFMA has kind of led the way to build up these resources to make this available for where we're going at into the future. So the report, there's a couple of main sections: technology, hybrid work models, sustainability, and facilities healthcare. We're going to hit on each one of these topics and kind of summarize current trends that are coming out in the future, where we're seeing things at today. And that's kind of what we'll transition to where we see things going in the future. So again, of course, not to beat a dead horse here, but COVID-19 certainly affected a lot of how we run our day-to-day work. We saw that as when COVID-19 happened, it's really interesting that many times, as many of you know, that the facility professional, in many cases, is behind the scenes, right? They're behind the buildings. They're getting things done on the back end, which is fine. But really, we saw that because of COVID, it really brought them to the forefront of like we're a key part of running our facilities in terms of how people use it, how people engage with it, and to stay safe as part of that. What's also interesting is that when we looked at COVID and some of the impacts it had, it really led to the development of other technologies that facilitated doing virtual events and other related technologies. So for example, Zoom, prior to COVID, I had not personally used Zoom extensively. I mean, it's a fairly new platform, but Zoom certainly went to the forefront of what that is. And of course, Teams and Meet and other technologies as well. So as we see that there's more technology that's as part of our facility management profession, the need to address, cybersecurity and other considerations as well is certainly a key part of what that is here. As part of this, we did talk to two folks. This is Dean and Stacy. They are industry professionals that helps us provide some really good insights as to what this needs to look like in terms of where things are going. Again, Dean Stanbury and Stacy Shepard provide a lot of good insights for what their opinions are and insights where we see things going on in the future. And again, in the report, if you want to copy that, let me know. I'll be glad to send this to you. But we appreciate their help and efforts to kind of guide where this is going to be going in the future. So when you think about technology, building technologies are really it's the application of technology to design and the operation of the buildings. So for example, building information modeling or BIM models has been around for decades, right? I mean, it's been around for a long time. There's a lot of new features that have been added, but that really focuses on the design side of things. And as new technologies have come out, it's more now about, well, we have their design, and now we have the operations of that, and how are these actually working, right? So, for example, this idea of a digital twin of our facilities, we have a computer-based model of what our building is. That's the digital twin of it. Has been another idea that has come out here to facilitate what that is looking at. So there's been different researches out there that looks at the savings by installing different type of technologies. $750,000 is one particular study. Again, this is highlighted in detail, but there's been different things here that can benefit FMs as they look to adopt these different technologies. When we looked at this, we really classified these technologies into five major areas: smart buildings, AI, cybersecurity, CMMS, and building information modeling were these main categories. So when you think about smart buildings and where this is going to the future is that, we'll talk about AI here in a moment, but when you think about the level of detail and data that we as facility professionals have access to, it's really quite impressive, right? And as our building equipment, our different systems have access to more sensors, more data, and the data is communicated to the cloud or through the internet, we can now begin to understand where these different predictions are happening at. In fact, I remember a research project. This was done, it was probably about 10 years ago by a student actually at the University College London, and they basically installed sensors that would detect vibrations on motors on certain pieces of equipment. And what they found here, again, it's not surprising. Some of you may have done this before, but they found that when the vibrations on these motors started increasing, because they tracked it over time, they saw, there's this uptick. It was like a 90% prediction that within, it was like 2 months, that this piece of equipment was going to start failing. Now, when the student had done it, they had basically bought some sensors, they plugged them in, and they kind of just jerry-rigged the whole thing together. But the idea is that we can start getting predictive insights into what something is about to fail before it fails is really, really insightful. So a smart building is to look at how people use the building, that things are automated. There's different things that to make the operations of the facility more efficient. So for example, in the future, I can imagine where we have a system that detects, let's say, custodial cleaning supplies are starting to get low. The building will notify its procurement system and automatically reorder the supplies that need to get done. Or let's say that filters are getting low on certain pieces of equipment, or oil changes are needed on whatever we're looking at. The idea that the building is aware of itself in a sense and can order supplies through the acquisition process to maintain it is really quite an interesting idea as we go forward here, right? So IoT, that's the Internet of Things, having data about all different parts of our building. I mean, today as facility professionals, I mean, think about this, right? We have access to a lot of data, and I think in the future, it's not even going to be recognizable compared to today. Just the level of data we're going to have access to in the future. Now, on the one hand, as we have more data, if you are in a world of data, it's really hard to see the big picture in spite of all these details here. So as you get access to more detail, it's important to take a step back and track the things here that actually help you make a difference or make a change in terms of how you operate your facilities. The other technology, the second technology we looked at is artificial intelligence. This is currently all the rave today. It's basically a computer program that can predict and understand what's happening out in the world, right? So, for example, ChatGPT is a specific type of AI, of artificial intelligence. It's called generative AI, meaning that you ask it questions, it will generate new types of answers that never been generated before and give a response to what that is here. Now, I do have on the slide here what's called artificial general intelligence. This does currently not exist, but the idea is that when we have AGI available and that becomes available, it will be as smart as a human being. Its ability to understand things, to read situations, and provide those levels of insights as to what's happening. There's certainly been developments on that front. We're not currently there yet, but that's kind of where things are going, and we'll see what the next 3 to 5 years or longer may hold. What this can do for us. So the thing about AI, for those of you that have not played with, ChatGPT or Gemini or Claude, first off, you should totally take a look at it. It's really quite impressive in terms of what it can do. I mean, the internet, computers, I mean, they really, I mean, it helps our day-to-day lives out, quite significantly. But as somebody who enjoys technology and likes to use it, I have found that AI, specifically the Gen AI technology, to be really quite impressive. I mean, it blows my mind for some of the things it can do. Now, it certainly doesn't do everything. There's certainly things that it can't do well, but it's interesting, right? So when you think about this AI and what it can do, it already is being disruptive. There's different studies out there that suggest that a lot of the jobs today won't exist. I saw there's different folks that are starting to lose their jobs because of what AI can do, and that is certainly true. However, when you look at every other major technological revolution, whether it's the production of cars and vehicles, computers, other related technology, people lose jobs, but every single time there's always more net benefit to society. There's always new types of jobs that we can imagine that will exist in the future because of what's happening here. So we did a study of facility professionals. This is earlier this year. We asked them about what is your take on AI? How do you view it? What do you anticipate using it? And what we found here is that currently about 50% of these facility managers do not currently use AI in their day-to-day operations. Another 28% we're not sure if they use it. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, not really sure. But again, the biggest benefits of this is that it can help with data management, operations efficiency, and of course, workplace management. I will say, if, for example, going back to ChatGPT, again, this is not a commercial for ChatGPT by any means here, just as an example. I find that the narrative portion of what it can do, like the writing, it's impressive, right? It's pretty good. Its ability to take a data set and analyze that data and tell us what's happening with that data is like a whole other level. It's really quite impressive what it can do from a data standpoint, right? And we're only just starting out scratching the surface of what this can do here, right? So some of the biggest challenges with AI is the implementation of how do we actually start using that. Some of these have very low barriers to entry from a cost standpoint. Others are certainly more than that. And again, the lack of skills in terms of folks that are doing this. I was at a conference, it was probably about 2 weeks ago. It was facility professionals, and I asked, show of hands, who has used this. It was about 50% of the folks in the audience had never used AI before, right? So again, I would take a look at that. IFMA has published a new resource called Game Changer, a Facility Manager's Guide to Building a Relationship with AI. So if you do have an interest in that, be sure to check that out. That is available for everybody. In fact, I'll post a link on here about what that is. So be sure to check that out. We helped write that with IFMA, and there's a whole group of people that put together. But this kind of walks through from an FN standpoint what that looks like for how you can use some of that, right? I will also say that one thing we are doing with IFMA as well is that we're having a pre-conference workshop with Facility Fusion. This will be on April 28th, 1 to 5 p.m. in Austin, Texas. And what this class is going to be is a 4-hour hands-on workshop in terms of what AI is, what it is not. We'll do lots of examples. So if you're interested in learning more about AI, I'd encourage you to check out the workshop. Again, this will be April of next year, and we'd love to see you all there. I'll be there. A couple of my colleagues will be there as well, and so it should be a great thing as well. Now, one of the other interesting things too, I kind of mentioned this earlier about cybersecurity, is that as our buildings become more connected, there are certainly benefits to looking at this and being aware of as a facility professional what we need to do to protect our buildings here. Now, on the one hand, I know that as facility folks, we have plenty of things to worry about. There's lots of things going on. But the other hand, though, is that it's important for us to understand what the needs are from a cybersecurity standpoint inside of our facility. And there's a couple examples as to why this is so important, right? There was a casino. They had a smart thermometer for their facilities. The casino was hacked, which was certainly there's millions of dollars in line here. And the way they got in was through the system's thermometer. And they got access to the entire network because of that thermometer. And that led to stealing of passwords and all sorts of other issues as well. There's a high-rise building. They had an unprotected wireless access point. So basically Wi-Fi is for the parking system printers. It wasn't secured. They got access to, again, to the entire network because of what that was, because it wasn't secured, and it made a bomb threat, right? So again, it's a big deal, and being aware of the cybersecurity considerations is a key part of what we'll be cognizant of, right? So that's cybersecurity. Again, different things to look at here. CMMS, computerized maintenance management systems. There's different studies out there. Honestly, we find here for most FMs, we find that about 50 to 60% of most FMs are not using CMMS. They tend to rely on Excel files and manual tracking of different systems. But I think going forward, we'll see more insights and more use of CMMS just because the technology is continuing to advance for what that is here. Now, one thing I wanted to mention here is that when you think about the data aspect, which is what the technology brings to us here, is that we got to think about it from the ability of that data to allow us to do something, right? So we have data, and we're going to use different analyses to look at that data, and the ultimate goal, anytime they have any type of data, is to allow us to take that data and do something with it. In other words, take action, do something, make something better. And if we can't do that, if it doesn't help us understand what's actually happening, then that data for us is not really that beneficial because we can't do anything with it, right? So it's really important to keep that in mind here as we think about data. Now, one thing that IFMA does have available is called the Power User and Resource Advantage Platform. I'll just briefly show you what this is. This is an IFMA resource. I'll put the link in the chat box here in a moment. But what this tool is the ability to go in and create customized reports based on whatever type of questions you ask about your facility. Again, this is all based on IFMA's FM benchmarking data. But on this website, you can go down, you can select different options. We're in the Heartland, US. There's some definitions here about what that includes. So there's, the middle part of the US, Western US, Canada. You can select the size of your facility, different functions that you're interested in, or what type of sector your facility is. And you can buy the maintenance report, sustainability report, and this will go through and generate a customized report based on the different criteria that you might select for your own specific building, right? So the reason why this is beneficial is that many times the reports that are published by IFMA are static reports, meaning that this is the data. You can't really tweak what's presented by that, but this is a way to modify what's being shown and hopefully add some more utility or data to help us make those decisions inside of our facilities here. So that's an example of that. Again, other technologies with that, BIM is the last technology we looked at. It can make things faster, easier, more efficient. If your facility has not started on a BIM model, in other words, you have a paper set of plans for the renovation or how the facility is constructed, it can be a challenge to bring that onto a digital system. There's certainly tools out there that can enable that, but it can be difficult to do that. Kind of what I've seen as the best approach to do this, that if you have a enterprise-wide perspective that, yes, we're going to commit to digital, we're going to use that for our construction, it's a part of what the contractors deliver to you, and you use that to maintain your buildings. In other words, it's a closed loop system to get track all your data. That's probably the best way to do that. Several years ago, our research team put together a paper about how to measure the benefits of BIM. We looked at a case study, we looked at A&E cost, modeling cost, contractor cost, and we go through and look at all the different outcomes of using BIM versus not BIM. And so again, if you want to copy that paper, just drop me an email and I would be glad to send that to you. Okay, so that was the first major technology we looked at. Our first major trend we looked at was technology in the built environment. The next one we looked at here is the hybrid work model. And I will tell you what, folks, here, based on what I'm seeing, and perhaps all you feel the same way, is that the hybrid work model has not been solved yet. There's still very different opinions as to what that looks like. I think it was Amazon recently announced, I think it's about 2 weeks ago, that all or most employees are expected to return back to the office, right? I mean, that's a big shift. And there's other companies like Meta, for example, that said that employees can work from home indefinitely, and that's what their approach is. So the reason I say the hybrid work model, we have part working from home, working from the office or the workspace, has not been resolved yet as to the most efficient way to actually get this done. We are doing a new study with IFMA that's going to be looking at what are the lessons learned of facility folks in terms of doing this, in terms of when we bring people back to the office, what are the key things we found with that. And so that'll be coming out in the future. So do keep an eye out for what's happening with that. So if you are considering a flexible workspace from an FM standpoint, again, it's important to understand our roles as the FM. And the main thing we found here is that not so much as a space planner, as a facilities management person, but more of how do we provide space that can help our organization achieve the outcomes desired, right? So from a cleaning or a custodial standpoint, if you have flex space where people come in and out all the time, questions like ownership of that space, who's responsible for cleaning that up on a day-to-day basis? These are key questions here that we need to have some answers to help us, think about this. And again, the other thing about flexible workspace is we really typically focus on vacancy rates, and that's not an ideal measure to look at. What your other office space, right? Because people always constantly going. It's really hard to measure what might be happening from that standpoint, right? So hybrid work models, there's different tools out there. You can integrate some of the use of it for your building management system. So you have actuators and sensors that adjust the building's conditions based on who's actually using the space. Real-time occupancy, so you can tell when people are in and out, and again, make decisions based on the actual data that can help us understand what's happening inside of our buildings. So again, hybrid work models, there's lots of tools out there, and just something to keep an eye on as the future goes forward. Again, we haven't resolved, in my opinion, where this is looking at. So the third major trend we looked at was sustainability. Again, there's been an interest in this a long time. And when we think about sustainability from our standpoint as a research team, the idea of sustainability is to do something once and not have to do it again. I mean, that's fundamentally what this is here, that if we're hiring contractors and products and tools, supplies that we have to replace, constantly that are meant to last a lot longer, but they don't, that creates issues, right? So a good example of this is like roofing systems. If we are constantly hiring low bid contractors and poor quality roofing systems and replacing them every 5 years, how sustainable is that, right? Instead, what we should be focused on is the long-term perspective. Buy a system that lasts, 15, 20, 25 years. You do regular maintenance, and the total footprint, the carbon imprint footprint of installing that roofing system is far less if we buy it once correctly instead of having to do that over and over again here, right? So some of the changes we're seeing from a facility standpoint is that there are more needs for FMs to track what's happening from a sustainability standpoint, whether it's carbon emissions, uh, uh, different emissions of our facilities and things we need to track from that standpoint. So decarbonization is another rule out there where basically the idea is that if our facilities don't perform at a certain level, then there's different implications that we will want to track with that, right? So tracking our buildings EUI, the Energy Use Index, is one way to look at what's actually happening from a building energy production or energy use standpoint that is important here, right? There's different ways to decarbonize our facilities, whether it's through electrification, solar panels, different financing or incentive programs, thermometers, water heaters, and just different ways to track what's actually happening inside of our buildings. There have been, at least here in the United States, there's been a few cities, for example, the city of Denver, I think it was 2 years ago, passed a rule that says if your facilities, public or private, don't perform at a certain EUI level, they'll be fined or taxed additionally because of that, right? So decarbonization is certainly a big area that has garnered interest in the future. I think we'll need to keep an eye on that as things go forward. So different areas, recycling, IT equipment, upgrading our HVAC systems, and of course, how our buildings are actually constructed will certainly play a role in terms of what this might look like going forward here. So sustainability was the third major trend that we looked at. Number four here is facility management and healthcare. Now, I know this is a pretty specific sector, but again, when you look at the demographics of the workforce and where things are changing, what's happening is that the need for healthcare services going forward is going to be absolutely significant as we look at this, right? And there's different things that are attached to this. There's ICT, which is information communications technology, so digital health, monitoring systems, mobile health, service automations, sanitation, air quality, sustainability. Again, all these different things here are components of healthcare FM. But I think as a sector, as a profession going forward, there's going to be huge demand for this as well, right? Now, the other thing to think about this too, from a workforce standpoint, not so much on the details of being a healthcare facilities professional, but the actual people behind maintaining these facilities. There's a study that we did about 2 years ago, and we looked at, again, specific to FM healthcare, 60% of healthcare FMs are planning to retire by 2028. 60%, right? The other thing here too is that the FM healthcare professionals are not getting younger. When we look at the data and who's coming into the workforce, people are getting older. In other words, there's not newer people coming into this. And so you fast forward 5 or 10 years, we're in a very difficult situation because there's not enough people to service our facilities at the level that we're expecting to do here. And part of the reason why here is that the traditional healthcare succession planning model, in other words, we have a new FM that comes in, they get trained up, they take over, they're executive someday. That time frame, that time horizon is just too long to be able to do some of this here. So we need to find other tools and resources to track people to work inside of healthcare FM, because if we don't do that, it's going to be a very challenging future as we go forward here and think about this, right? So some of the stats to kind of highlight this, the state of healthcare facility engineering, the technical force, average age, 52 years old as of today, 13 years until retirement, right? So the workforce structure, there's a lot of trades focus. These have very deep expertise. There's also maintenance technicians, or these are generalists. And many times these folks have a jack of all trade, but expert of none, which is beneficial because that means they can do different things here. But at the same time, having those technical hands-on details about how to do things is what's kind of missing from the folks that are potentially coming in here, right? So when we think about where are these technicians coming from, they come from a variety of different sources, but from other industries that are kind of related to this. And when you think about how do we address this going forward here, is having a formal recruitment plan and how you're going to access these other non-traditional sources for workforce is going to be the key as we look at this going forward here. So our team is working on a variety of different studies on this. If you do have an interest in working on workforce development, finding these future folks, definitely reach out because there's a bunch of different things that we're working on. One of the new things that are coming up for this year is a FM mentorship program. Is how do we, from a research-based standpoint, what is the optimal way to structure and deliver an FM mentoring program? So that'll be coming out in 2025. We've got a lot of interest in that. We're going to do a lot of data collection, and so definitely keep your eyes out because that is coming down the line here. So in summary here, things are changing in the world. We all know that. FM is no exception to that rule. As FMs, we need to leverage and enhance the skill sets of the people that we have here. So things like credentials, education, training are absolutely crucial to this. I do think the future is bright. I definitely believe that. However, is that there's going to be a bit of a rough patch as we go forward the next several years, as more folks continue to retire, as we try to find ways to recruit people and be involved on our inside of facility management. So if you'd like a copy of the slides or the report, be sure to reach out to me. I'll drop my email address here in the chat box, jake.smithwick@charlotte.edu.
Thank you for joining us for today's session of Ask the FM Doctor. Be sure to mark your calendars now and join our next webinar at 12 p.m. Central Time on the third Tuesday of the month. We look forward to seeing you again.